and keynote speaker for the day, Mr. Ram Vishwanathan. Mr. Ram Vishwanathan is an IBM fellow and currently the CTO of IBM Blockchain Services. He's played varied roles and continually worked at the intersection of business and technology to provide a deeper value for global citizens. In his current role as a CTO, Sir has provided a technical leadership in all aspects of building and delivering blockchain solutions for clients. He also leads the development of assets and architectural talent to help accelerate clients' time to value. Sir is passionate about leadership development and actively coaches next-gen tech leaders with focus on diversity. He played a pivotal role in the development of global architectural talent and continues to guide the development of deeper tech talent. He is a sought-after speaker in both internal and external forums, where he regularly speaks on technologies that are shaping the world. Currently, he's a blockchain evangelist, but also speaks on varied topics ranging from platforms to mobility to API economy to running. He's an IBM master inventor with over 25 patents to his credit. Besides inventing, he also regularly blogs in internal and external forums on varied topics, ranging from travel to tech to international affairs. He's an avid long distance runner and has completed 59 marathons in 34 cities in 13 countries. He's a founder member of Chennai Runners, which encourages everyone to take to fitness. He's also co founded Deepam, a non profit organization that helps bridge the divide between lesser privileged kids. He's an alumnus of Anna University, India, and Ohio State University, USA. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Ram Vishwanathan to share a few words.
Thank you for your introduction, Roshni, and welcome to the graduates of what it takes 2 years, 2023, the batch of 2023. Welcome, and I hope all of you have a wonderful ride in the MBA program. I go out to IIT Madras for running, and I have done a few presentations in their business campus. Wonderful campus. I hope all of you get to come and stay here or visit the Chennai wonderful campus soon. I myself, I did my master's or MBA in Ohio State University. It was a wonderful experience. Learned a lot. As they say, this may be might not translate culturally across, but you learn from the. You have to drink water from the fire hose. That is, there's going to be lots of learning coming at you during the course of your time there. Have an open mind, learn as much as you can, and I'm sure you guys will have a wonderful time. So with good luck with that. I was asked to talk about blockchain. So I don't know how many of you have heard of blockchain. I don't know how we do some polls or anything here, but by a show of hands, how many of you have heard the term blockchain? I don't know how to even view, but if you guys can show up, raise your hand. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. People can use the technology, right? All right. I see a few hands that are raised. You can do it through the raise hand, right? There are ways in which you can raise your hand. So good stuff. Thank you. I see I have a few people. Even if you have not heard of blockchain as a technology per se, I'm sure many of you or all of you would have heard of Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is in the news recently. For a while now, there are pros and cons of Bitcoin. That itself is a separate topic in terms of what's the future of currencies, right? There is in fact, I saw in the papers today, India is looking to introduce, the Reserve Bank of India is looking to introduce CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. I'm sure over the course of your time here, you guys will get caught up. One thing this pandemic has done is it has accelerated our journey to be more digitized. But by the way, Rushni, is it possible to record this program?
So it's being recorded.
Oh, it's already being recorded. Okay, perfect. Thanks. Um,
Yes.
so one thing this pandemic is definitely accelerating is the move for digitization. Everything and anything that is possible, and even the stuff that we thought was not possible, is getting digitized. And when we talk about digitization, yeah, clear example is how this quote unquote uh, inauguration of the program is being done digitally. It's being recorded. It will be made available for everyone over a period of time. And I'm taking a whole bunch of courses myself. I'm keeping myself current on a variety of technologies. What I would have otherwise gone and lectured or spoken to the audience or listened to, everything is being done digitally. So COVID has definitely changed all of our lives um, in some shape or fashion. Lot will unfold and lot will be written in the coming years and decades. Um, Having said that, movement of value is foundational to anything that can happen. As you may have heard, there are four pillars for global economy, right? One is movement of goods. Other one is movement of capital. Some other organizations come and invest in India. Hyundai Motors, for example, has invested in Tamil Nadu, and they have started a factory. So are many others. So movement of goods, that is stuff that's manufactured in one country moves to the other one. There are tons of those kinds of examples. Anyone and everyone having an Apple phone will know that it is quote unquote designed in US, manufactured in Shenzhen, China, and it's made available globally. So movement of goods, movement of capital. And then the other one that is crucial is the third and the fourth pillars, or movement of idea or movement of data. Um, the cloud is making, or all these digital platforms are making, movement of data or ideas are quite feasible and easy with increased digitization and increased connectivity across. Even 10 years back, this kind of a WebEx session wouldn't have been possible in India. Thanks to the improvement in the connectivity, all of us are able to converse wherever we are sitting, whether it is in cities or in villages or in towns, wherever we are. So we talked about movement of goods, movement of um, capital, movement of data or ideas, the connectivity. The third one is about movement of people. That's where the immigration policies, the various country brands. I was just watching a news clip that there are 202 countries that are currently participating in the Tokyo Olympics, right? So there are minimally 202 countries that are out there with their own policies around movement of people. But the point here is these are the four pillars of um, global economy or movement of assets, goods, and trade. And foundation to all of that is trust. Trust between organizations, trust between countries, trust between entities. If I were to net out what does blockchain bring to the table, blockchain increases the trust quotient amongst the various parties that are interacting. Blockchain enables increased level of trust through some foundational technologies that we will talk about in a minute. And the currencies that are going to be built on top of blockchain are going to enable, whether it is the bitcoins of the world or the CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies that are coming up. Reserve Bank of India is going to be introducing. All these will be built on some blockchain technologies or the other. And the foundation to all of that is the ability to increase the level of trust for the people who are participating in that ecosystem. So that's where blockchain comes. One of the greatest challenges, deficiencies in any interaction is the level of trust. That's why there is so much documentation that goes around in any interactions, whether it is between educational institutions and the students who are getting admitted, or you walk into your bank for a loan, or when organizations look to trade. That's why there are various forms of stringent contracts, and between countries where they legalize, regularize what can come in, what can't come in, what kind of documentation that needs to go. In IBM, we did a study of roses, and particularly during Thanksgiving time or during other occasions. Lots of roses that are grown in South America moves up north to either Europe or to, let's say, North America, US, or Canada. And just to do that, there are various paperwork that is required, from the labor that was employed to grow those roses in those gardens, to the pesticides that were applied, to the various regulatory norms in terms of how they can be transported. And by one account, there were over 150 different types of paperwork and regulatory authorities that must approve shipment of roses from a South American country all the way up north to US or to Canada. And the same thing to Europe as well. And these kinds of laws increases friction in trade, and that increase in friction translates to increase in cost of doing business, and that directly affects the price of a product and the profitability or the margin that organizations have. Blockchain, by having an increased level of trust, will ensure those frictions are reduced, those barriers can be reduced to the extent the governments will allow, and increase the ability to do business or interactions in a trusted fashion with reduced friction and increased margins. So that's the foundation there. I have a presentation that I will walk through. As they say, the folks in the corporate world cannot speak without some visual cues, and I have my visual cues here. I'll just put them up. But I would encourage all of you to ask questions. I think all of us can chat here. So if you guys can put your questions, I will try to respond to them as I go along. And I'll roughly take about, let's say it's in a 6:23, right? I'll try to wrap up by 7:15. That's my goal, and I will open it up for any questions. If you guys want to come up and speak, or if you guys want to put your questions in the chat, feel free to do so as well. Just give me a minute to set myself up. Share. Maybe this one. Okay, and then if I press enter, what happens? I think I need to switch my screen here. Just give me a minute. Okay, let's try this one. All right, so this is how I've structured my presentation here as to what, why, and how. And so what is blockchain? Blockchain is just another technology, okay? Um, I've been in the IT industry for more than, I wish to admit, a long time, more than a quarter of a century. And there are several technologies that have come, that will come, and that will go. But some technologies stay. The main reason why technologies continue to evolve is how can it increase the how can it benefit the humankind? Uh, as I talked about, blockchain enables trusted transactions. Every organization spends, depending on in which business they are in, 70 to 80% of their revenue in buying, procuring services, whether it is employees, whether it is spare parts, whether it is travel services, whether it is advisory services, or Hyundai-like company would probably buy everything and then assemble them, right? So there is a huge ecosystem of supply chain that is foundational. And when we talk about supply chain, it's interacting outside your enterprise. And when you talk about interacting outside your enterprise, issuing a request for proposal, bids, verifying them, maintaining the quality, and there's so much documentation that goes in between. All of that requires trust between the people who are interacting. If that can be digitized through a trusted platform where everyone agrees before a transaction is, what shall I say, approved, that increases the level of trust, and that also reduces friction amongst the parties that are doing the trade. So what are some of the foundational capabilities of blockchain? Why is blockchain so important for increasing the level of trust? Going from the top there, consensus that is done via smart contracts and endorsement. In other words, I can't quote unquote finalize a transaction before everyone who is involved in that transaction approve it. And that is done via a automated code called smart contract. And the parties who are involved in a transaction need to approve that. That is called endorsement. So the consensus mechanism is crucial. I want to submit a transaction. It has to be approved by my banker or by my insurer or by my shipper or by the seller or the buyer, who's over it is. And once that is approved, it gets written in an immutable fashion. So what is immutability? Immutability is once you write it, you cannot delete it. You can only write on top of that with some more approvals, but you cannot delete or rewrite or update anything that you have written once. That's the immutability. And there are cryptography and chaining that ensures that you cannot tamper with what you have written, because once you do that, it will go out of sync with the other ledgers in the platform, and you will not be able to function anymore. That's where the replication comes in. When you create a block, when you create a record, it gets updated via the channels to all participants in that network. So one record, there's a copy of that with all the participants. So you cannot change anything without everyone agreeing for a change. And even that you can only update. You can only write on top. You cannot update the existing record. Security, that one that you see there, there's a certificate authority that is there. Only people who are allowed to participate can participate, and it's verified at 3 different levels. So there is assured level of security. All of this is inbuilt within the blockchain technologies. There are several of them in play. Now, going back to Bitcoin uses some of these foundational technologies. Of course, it's an open blockchain network. But when we talk about blockchain, or when I'm talking about blockchain, I talk about blockchain for business, which is a permissioned blockchain. For example, anyone, all of us with sufficient skills and sufficient um, tenacity can go spin a Bitcoin node and start mining for Bitcoin, but it could take a long time. And there is a cost benefit analysis that all of us will have to do, and that might not be easily done in terms of cracking it so that a Bitcoin is issued for you. But technically, it's an open network, public network, anyone can do that. Now, some of the foundational aspects, I talked about a ledger, I talked about a transaction, and I talked about a contract. In all of our interactions between any parties, there is a bookkeeping that is done. I keep my books, the other organization keeps their book, and I record the transaction, they record their transaction. And any handshake happens via a bunch of documentation or via invoices that are done manually or electronically. And then contract is, I issue an RFP, there is a RFP response that comes out, and then there is a contract. I deliver 100 widgets for this price by this time, by this quality, and you pay me within 90 days, whatever. So there are contracts. And all of this can be digitized via smart contracts, and any transaction or all ledgers are duplicated across the parties that are involved, so that there is a copy with me, there's a copy with anyone who is buying or selling with me, or any insurer, any banker. So this is how you increase the level of trust. I already talked about this, so I'm not going to talk about this here. Bitcoin uses blockchain technologies, but blockchain is not just Bitcoin. There are several other currency, Bitcoins of the world that are out there. You can go read up Ethereums to a bunch of others. Even in India, there are people talking about that. This is different from what the central banks are looking to come out. As I mentioned earlier, Reserve Bank of India is looking to come up with central bank digital currency, which is not Bitcoin, but government authorized Indian rupees available in a secure fashion through the wallets that all of us can carry. And that is coming, and that's probably, I just want to call out that that is different from what the Bitcoins are doing. Bitcoins are both a boon and a bane, like any other technology. These circumvent any central banks of a variety of countries, and they have their own ways of governing. So there are various restrictions across multiple countries. And even in India, there are lots of guidance that RBI and the finance ministry has issued on some of these digital currencies. So we talked about what is blockchain. And now I'm going to get into why blockchain for industries. How can blockchain help industries, businesses do business interactions with trust and increase the level of trust by and reduce friction, right? There are four dominant areas in which we think of blockchain technologies. One is around, I'll get into them in a little bit detail. One is around tokens. We talk about fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens, that is, tokens that can be transformed into something else, tokens that cannot be transformed. But the net here is there are lots of assets that are illiquid, that cannot be easily traded. The highest form of trade is, and rupee is the highest liquid asset that we have. But then you talk of real estate, you talk of bonds, you talk of many of the gold, they cannot be easily traded. So once you have an asset, it just asset is locked and you cannot realize value. One of the ways of realizing value of illiquid assets is via this concept called tokens. Again, you have fungible, non-fungible tokens, but just tokens in general. And that is foundational. We talk about identity, which is foundational, a trusted identity to know who you are is foundational. In India, we have the Aadhaar card, which establishes who you are with biometric. But when it comes to organizations, when it comes to institutions, when it comes to navigating across the globe with an identity, individuals have passport, but establishing identity for organizations is also important. So how do you have self-sovereign identities? There are, again, blockchain technologies play a crucial role there. Provenance. Provenance, I already talked about this. How do we know how did something really originate? All of us buy products. All of us buy groceries. All of us buy diamonds. I have some examples of that. But when we walk in and go buy an apple or a banana, do we know where it really came from? There's a common saying in the technology world. There is a craze around the world for organic food. When you look at it, there is more organic food, labeled food, sold as organic food than produced. So somebody is not telling the truth and just labeling, creating some attractive labels and selling products which are not organic as organic. How do you really know where your apple came from? Can I understand the history of my apple? Which farm was it grown? How was it shipped? How was it stored? What kind of pesticides that were used? What kind of seeds were used? It's not just to apples, but anything that we have a saying called farm to fork. What if I'm able to scan the UPI code or a barcode in a product and know exactly the complete provenance, the history of that product? That is the provenance. History of anything. There is so much conversation about, I mentioned about diamonds. Diamonds are mined in some African mines. And they might be using sweat labor. They might be using them for conflict diamonds, blood diamonds, as it's called. In fact, there was even a movie called Blood Diamond a few years back. But how do you really know the diamond that you are buying in a shop in Chennai or elsewhere or in other parts of the world is really not a conflict diamond? Can you certify that? There are certifications available, but how do you ensure the authenticity of that? This is again the provenance helps to understand the history. Platform. We are surrounded by platforms. From the Amazons, the Flipkarts of the world, to the Ubers of the world, to Swiggy's, everything is a platform which brings in an ecosystem of players. In the case of Uber, it brings in the riders and the drivers together. It ensures there's a transaction and the platform takes a cut. In the case of Amazons of the world or Flipkarts of the world, it brings in buyers and sellers on a platform, in a trusted platform. And Amazon or anyone, Flipkarts of the world, take a cut. Swiggy does the same thing. It brings in the hotels, it brings in the people who can deliver, and people like us who are wanting to have a masala dosa at home. It brings in these parties together and they take a cut, they take a delivery fee. But these platforms are, again, there are Swiggy's in the middleman, Amazon as a middleman, they all take a cut. When it comes to corporates, right? How can they have these kinds of platforms wherein it can be done by a neutral body that enables the increased level of trust via blockchain technologies and providing the privacy? So while we are all in the consumer space surrounded by platforms, in the corporate environment, in the business environment, these kinds of many-to-many platforms are still evolving, still in its infancy. That's where blockchain can play a huge role in providing privacy and a trusted platform in which people can talk to each other. So these are the four main reasons why blockchain is used in the business. I'm going to pick up speed here a little bit. Tokens are nothing new. Now, all of us have seen tokens in a variety of ways. Again, in the consumer industry, right? When you go to a casino in other parts of the world, or when you go into some amusement parks, there are tokens that are issued. You trade them for some certain amount of dollar value, rupee value, and then you use them within that ecosystem. But tokens are now being used to create these liquid and assets that can be made illiquid assets more liquid. Precious metals, arts and luxury objects, real estate holdings, inventions. There are so many ways of tokenizing what was otherwise not easily tradable. What it does is it helps you trade better, create liquidity for assets that were illiquid earlier. It gets into the why of tokens, and you can develop new asset classes, increase liquidity, reduce friction in transactions, increases transparency and efficiency, right? And so all of these are subject to um, regulatory authorities of the variety of countries. One of the big things we are currently doing a project for a tenant in Europe. One of the biggest thing is green energy, and I'm sure you will read more about green energy in your program as well. Being green is becoming a requirement, either mandated by the governments or organizations, multinational cloud providers like Amazon, Google, any multiple people, including Microsoft. They're all promising that the energy that they consume will be of green in nature. So how do you ensure that this is via tokens that can be issued to the green energy creators, right? Wherever it is produced, the producers of green energy will get these tokens, and the consumers like Amazons or enterprises, large enterprises, will buy these tokens. And that way they will ensure that they are consuming the energy, even though couldn't be a direct correlation. You know that the green energy tokens that were given to the producers of green energy was bought by the people who are consuming energy, large enterprises. This is a big thing in Europe and North America, but I'm sure these kinds of things are catching up. Of course, in Japan is big in this, but there are other countries that are also catching up. And this is some space to watch in the coming weeks and months. The next one is identity. And what's the identity? You know, traditionally, all of us come and present, hey, I am Ram, I am whosoever it is, right? John. And then came some documents that are issued to us, right? The identity, when you join an educational institution like IIT, they will issue an identity that says that you are a student. When you travel across borders, a passport is required. Aadhaar is foundational. In some countries, and there are various other forms of identity, driver's license, so on and so forth. From the time a kid is born, from the birth till the departure, there are various forms of identity that are being issued, and we all carry some various paper forms, digital forms of that. But when it comes to interactions, you give out those depending on where you're interacting, you give out. What if there is an ability to digitize it with an increased level of trust? That's already starting to happen, right? When the whole World Wide Web came in, there is a user ID login that came in. When you have a ID with Yahoo, Google, whatever, they issue a user ID and password. And then now those IDs can be used across, right? User credentials can be federated. And then now we are talking about having your identity with yourself and your credentials with yourself, and you reveal it to the people only the information that is required. For example, if you need to just verify that you are an adult, why do you have to show your driver's license that has a whole bunch of other information? All they need to know is whether you are 18 or over. Yes or no, it's a binary answer. Is there a way to just give that information and not everything else, not show your address, date of birth, whatever, right? So what if you're able to control the information that you're willing to reveal? And this is where the identity comes in, and this is where blockchain comes in. And this is a growing area. All of you may have heard of digital wallets that are coming up, particularly for vaccine identity, right? Am I vaccinated or not? Currently, I'm carrying a paper around that I'm vaccinated twice. But all the airport or an immigration authority may need to know is, are they vaccinated by an authorized vaccine and delivery person? All they need to know is a binary answer, yes or no. Why am I showing them everything else? So if I'm able to have all of them in my wallet, in my digital wallet, and then I authenticate myself with only the minimally required information, that's where blockchain-based identity solutions come into play. I'm going to pick up speed here. The next one gets into, generally there are three parties involved in the identity business. One is the holder, that is me as an individual. And somebody would have issued me that identity. If it's my passport, the government would have issued, I hold my passport. And then I walk into a immigration authority, they will look at my passport, they will run some numbers, they will verify, and then they authorize me to move forward or stop me or whatever. So there are generally three parties involved. And that is the case with many of the things that we do. There is always a credential giver, there is always a credential holder, there is always a credential verifier. When you all joined in IIT, IIT would have reviewed or verified your quote unquote credentials, from your birth certificate, age proof, to your whatever other credentials that they had to verify, to the marks that you have gained. What if all of this can be digitally exchanged? That's where the blockchain technologies are coming, and there are various use cases that are out there as well. Now, I talked about networks, provenance, the history of anything. I already talked about what if I know where did this banana come from? Where did this, what shall I say, diamond come from? All of those are valid use cases. I talked about food trust. This is a solution that's out there. All of this is public information. I'll share this deck. You guys can go take a look at it. And I talked about the diamond. It's not a blood diamond and whatnot. And then all of this needs to, I talked about how these blockchain-based platforms can increase the interaction, reduce friction. While these kinds of platforms, not on blockchain, are very relevant in the consumer space, the increased level of trust requires the commercial businesses to have platforms that are built with increased level of security and trust, and that's where blockchain comes in. And trusted blockchain network, business networks increases wealth and markets for all participants. And this is a huge statement. But if buyers, sellers, bankers, insurers, shippers, all of them can participate in a network, their ability to find new business partners, newer business model, all increase exponentially. That's where blockchain is very promising. Trade Lens is a solution that's out there, wherein we talk about how all the parties from one geography to the other geography, from China to US or from India to Europe, how all of them can participate in an ecosystem with an increased level of trust. Maersk that you see out here is one of the most of the goods that are moved globally today, right? They are the container movement by ocean across oceans. They are the largest container mover in the world. IBM and Maersk have partnered together to create the solution called the trade lane. So you can go read it up on this. Now I'm going to get into, probably in the next 10 minutes, talk about how can the value be realized. You need to build networks. Now, this is going to be technology spin, so I'm going to minimize this. You need to have 4 key dimensions that needs to be answered. Why am I investing several $1 million, several lakh rupees to build a business network? What problem am I trying to solve? Who are the ecosystem players? What's the value for them? How am I going to operate it? Not just building something, but on an ongoing basis. How am I going to run it? We call that as day 2 operations. What are the legal ramifications of digitizing something, particularly across boundaries? What are the regulatory requirements that I need to adhere to? And I need to ensure I have logs of that in the system that I'm building. Technology. Technology is least of the problem. Of course, I'm a technology guy. I can talk about technology all day till the cows come home. But when we talk of building business solutions, it's more than technology. It is, why am I building this solution? What are the requirements and how am I going to run it? So we have this acronym called BOLT, B-O-L-T. These are the 4 dimensions in which the solutions need to be thought of and understood, and then you build the solution. That's all I have. Now I'm going to stop my presentation here and then see if there are any questions or comments. Stop sharing. Okay, let me see if I can look at the questions. Sir, how do I do this? Chat.
Sir, there's just one question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Sir, the question is about, sir, could you elaborate on the trust you have spoken digital currency? But I think that question is already answered through your presentation. It was actually posted before the presentation. Sir, we have another question from Godi Yashasvi. Godi, could you please unmute and ask your question?
Thank you, Roshi. Good evening, sir. My name is Yashasvi and I'm currently in the second year of the MBA course. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for this wonderful session that you've given us and for sharing such information that would be really helpful for us. I just had a simple question, sir. Sir, we've been seeing the evolution of Bitcoin and other currencies like Ethereum and Dogecoin. So from being called illegal in India, crypto has come a long way. Yesterday, we've seen Sri T. Ravi Shankar, the Deputy Governor of RBI, say that crypto and blockchain is the future. So how do you think that this evolution would help India as an economy? And do you think that the tax fraud would increase even more due to this?
Good points there. Bitcoin and what RBI announced yesterday are 2 different dimensions. Both of them use blockchain technologies. Bitcoin is what as they say, right? Wild West, right? There are no laws. It's a self-governing body. They are above and beyond any regulatory requirements of any countries. Lot of shadow economy, shadow transactions, all leverage Bitcoins, and then there are a wide variety of controversies that are out there about Bitcoins and coins like that, which work outside the purview of the governmental agencies or the central banks of all the countries. So every country is trying to come to grapple with that. What Reserve Bank of India announced, and I'm very happy to see that, is central bank CBDC as they are called. Every country in the world is looking to issue digital currencies. If you are carrying a wallet, if you have Paytm, and if you have some money is there, you're already having a digital wallet, but then Paytm is holding that money for you. Instead, what if government gives you that ability? What if China is in the forefront of digitizing this? US is looking. Dollar is the most liquid and most, what shall I say, easily exchanged currency in the world today. After that is euro. After that is yen, Japanese yen, and then of course China wants to get there as well. That's why the global economy, the underpinning that is US dollars. US is looking to digitize to enable these kinds of further spread of their currency. And India is looking to do the same as well. If you look at what India is doing, there are some countries that accept trade in Indian rupees, but that is only a minimal countries and there are only small countries. But when it comes to international trade on one dimension and then trade within India, is there a way to increase the acceptability and the liquidity of Indian rupee? That's what Indian government is looking to do. And that's what every government is looking to do. There are going to be people who are fast movers. And I see India is catching up in that space quickly. Anecdotal information is, personally, I'm seeing a tremendous change in the use of wallets in India, right? From a street corner kiosk to a restaurant, to a small a kirana store, everyone is accepting Google Pay these days. What that is exactly doing is it's your currencies are digitally exchanged. But what if it is more prevalent? As they say in Europe, right? Some of the Nordic countries, 95% of all their transactions, commercial or retail, are done in an electronic medium. In India, it is probably around 10%. Anytime when hard currencies are exchanged, government is mandating anything over 10 lakh needs to be via a check and whatnot. But we are not there yet in terms of how do you increase the acceptance of digital currencies. And that also creates, a good and the not so good side. Anytime there is a digital exchange, there is a digital footprint. Every transaction can be traced and everything becomes legal, quote unquote, and there are tax liabilities and whatnot. As they say, right, a lot of real estate transactions in India, there is a quote unquote white paper, and then there is a black value that is exchanged. So how do you eliminate all of that? If more and more transactions can be done via a transparent system, it can help us. And one of the ways of doing that is increasing digitizing and making it easy for people to exchange digitally. Even the tender coconut vendor who is outside my house in Alva Pet will accept. He has a thing that I can scan and I can pay. So these are the ways in which the digitization will increase. And by Indian government getting into that bandwagon, saying, I will issue digital currencies, that opens up more possibilities for its adoption in not only just in retail, in the commercial space, and between intergovernmental, interdepartmental, intercountry spaces. It is still early in its avatar. I will wait for a couple of years to see how these things shape up. I see another question from Anna. Sir, it will be a real challenge to use food trust example in India, as the ecosystem plays involved will include farmers who are far majority deprived of technology. So can we expect to see the usage of this particular case anytime soon? Good question. I wouldn't have thought of us doing digital learning the way we are doing today. So I wouldn't underestimate the capacity of Indian farmers to embrace technology. If there is a value to them, they will embrace. I'll give you a distant example. This is from my own personal anecdote. Maybe 20 years, 2 decades, when mobile phones were still in its infancy in India, farmers did not know what is the procurement price of the paddy or the wheat or anything that they are producing that is being given by the government. Government is the major procurer of agricultural produce in India, particularly the rice, the wheat, and the associated products. There was a field day for the middlemen. The brokers used to buy, I'm just making it up, if 1 quintal of rice was being procured for 200 rupees by the government of India, or 500 rupees, the broker in the middleman would come and offer 400 rupee ready cash to the farmer, take it, and then they make a cut. What we did as the mobile phone technologies were coming, all we did was to publish the procurement price of the government of India or the local governments in an SMS, and we created a SMS subscription system at the time, right? All these were early. And the farmers knew that government is buying it for 500 rupees, but I'm getting only 400 rupees. So they started demanding fair price from the middlemen, and the middlemen were getting squeezed. Believe it or not, the middlemen in several states, I very well remember I was in Madhya Pradesh at the time. The Madhya Pradesh, whatever the middleman ecosystem, whatever it was called, they went on a huge quote unquote strike, and they brought the entire state to a halt for a few days. But then we moved past it, it was implemented all across, and the middlemen got squeezed. So when there is a benefit to the farmer, they were very quick to adapt, and they are very resilient. And when there is value for them, they will embrace far quicker than we give them credit. Since the Indian government is trying to venture into this digital currency, what do you think would be the effect of digitization of currency on corruption? This is what I was alluding to earlier. Anytime there is increased level of digitization, anytime there is digitization, there is digital footprint. One of the boon and the bane, right, depending on which way you look at it, everything is getting digitized. Every packet, my sitting in somewhere in Chennai, presenting people from all over India in this call, every IP packet can be traced, and somebody can make sense of that for good or for bad. So digital economy creates transparency. For people who have nothing to hide, it's a great thing. It ease the ease of doing business. There is nothing to hide. If I'm doing real estate transactions in black and white, then you would be worried as to how these digital currencies will impact you. But if you're doing transactions based on total transparency, this is the value of the real estate, and this is what I'm paying. Everything is done via check, via digital exchanges. There's nothing to hide. There is lots of conversations happening about GST in India. after GST has been implemented, the amount of tax, realizable tax, has grown manifold. 2x, 3x, 4x, whatever. Earlier, every state had their own rules, their own systems, their own loopholes. All of that has been standardized. We can debate about the centralization of GST, whether it is good or bad, or we can talk about that depending on which side of the fence people are sitting. But I'm coming at it from a digitization, from an automation perspective. Automation, whether it is done at a state level or at a federal level, will plug loopholes. When it plugs loopholes, it will reduce friction. When it reduces friction, it increases transparency. When it increases transparency, it benefits everyone who are in that conversation. Long answer, but I hope that answered your question. It's 6 past 7 o'clock here. So I'm going to hand it over back to you, Haripriya.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that really insightful session.
Sorry,
And thank you.
Roshni, yeah.
Yes, sir, that's okay. Thank you for that insightful session, sir. It was really interesting to see the correlation between blockchain and trust and all the components involved. Thank you for answering all our queries. Sir, now would actually be asking our department to please speak about the admissions process.
So if you can kindly excuse, I have to drop in for some other conversations with with my team. So I will drop in. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Am I
Yes,
required
sir.
for the conversation? Okay, thank you. Thanks for the
Thank
invite.
you so much.
And Roshni, I will send this deck over to you. You can share it with the participants as it's needed. And I would also like to get the recording of this so that I can share it in LinkedIn.
Okay, sir. We'll do that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck to all the students. I wish you the very best. Learn, have an open mind, and have a wonderful time. Good luck.